just what exactly are we expecting?
Yeah, well, we're expecting widespread wet weather and significant falls for a significant amount of time as well. We've already started to see it ramp up last night, particularly in southern parts of Queensland and far northern New South Wales. There was some big thunderstorm activity late in the evening yesterday into the early hours of this morning, which has delivered many areas between 50 and about 150 millimetres of rain through the night and into this morning. Now, as we push through the rest of the day today, we will start to see that wet weather move a little bit further south into New South Wales, but it's really just setting up for what's to come with a couple more days of very significant rainfall. Friday through much of the day for New South Wales. Saturday as well, we'll start to see that wet weather in New South Wales also affect some eastern parts of Victoria before clearing through the back half of the weekend. So it's a prolonged run of very wet weather, which could lead to some areas of riverine flooding.
So talk us through what amount of rainfall we could expect in some areas.
So as I said, some places have already seen between 50 and 150 millimetres of rain. And as we look at rainfall values for today, we could see that much again in some areas, particularly the far north of New South Wales and the far south and southeast of Queensland. Into tomorrow, we could again see anywhere between sort of 30 and 150 millimetres of rain for some coastal parts and some inland parts of New South Wales. And on top of that, into Saturday, we could see another 100 mils in some areas. So by the time this is all said and done, lots of places over 100 millimetres of rain, some places up towards 150 to 200 millimetres of rain. So it's significant and widespread wet weather over the next 3 days or so.
Angus, you briefly mentioned it earlier. What sort of warnings are we looking at?
So overnight last night, we were looking at severe thunderstorm warnings, which are covering these small but intense pockets of rain. But as we move through today and into tomorrow, the rain gets more extensive and widespread. That's going to shift to severe weather warnings. So I've seen our severe weather forecast team this morning drafting up the first edition, which should be out later this morning, for a broad severe weather warning covering a lot of the New South Wales coastline. It stretches from about Newcastle down to Bega. So that does include Sydney, that does include Wollongong. There's likely to be severe weather warning there in place from later this morning. Outside of that, there's a number of flood watches active. Flood watches for a lot of rivers through New South Wales and southern Queensland. Flood watches are basically saying, hey, heads up, there's a lot of rain on the way to the catchment for these particular rivers. And if that does act as expected, those river levels are going to rise. And a number of these rivers may very well start to see minor, moderate, or in some cases, even major flooding in the next couple of days.
Angus, can you talk us through, we're hearing about this possibility of an East Coast low. Can you just explain what that is and what that could do to that region?
Yeah, of course. But first off, I should reiterate, this is not looking like an East Coast low event. Now, I know that has been bandied around a little bit in a few stories the last few days, but we're not anticipating this to be an East Coast low. What an East Coast low is, well, in the name, it's a low pressure system off the East Coast, but there's a number of other things that have to factor in before we'd call it a full-blown East Coast low event, including how deep the low pressure centre is, how slow it's moving, how much significant weather it's causing. So an East Coast low is a specific and damaging weather event. This is not an East Coast low, but it is still going to bring widespread rain and potential flooding.
Okay, so what about other parts of the country? What are we expecting there?
Yeah, so away from southeast Queensland, New South Wales and eastern Victoria, it's a much more settled story across Australia for the second half of this week and into the weekend as well. A broad high pressure area is giving mostly settled and slightly cool weather to a lot of places in the south, so temperatures in the upper teens through Victoria, Tasmania. There will be a little weather feature through there in the coming days, bringing some showers. Fine weather across South Australia and Western Australia, with temperatures a little cool in areas, and still a few showers and storms across the tropical north. We are still in the wet season up there, but compared to recent days and weeks, it's looking to be relatively speckled and spotty activity with a lot of gaps and sunshine in there too.